Hey guys, welcome back. This is part 8 of my Sorcerer playthrough. For those who have been watching from the beginning, you'll know that we're entering the final stages of the game. I've already taken on Seath and Bed of Chaos, so there's only 3 major bosses left in the game for me. I've got Gravelord Nito, 4 Kings, and the Lord of Cinder himself. Obviously you're seeing me upgrade my 3rd and final dagger into a Divine Dagger. That's because I'm heading down to Nieto next. For any normal playthrough or even a low-level playthrough with no restrictions, the easiest way to take on Nieto is to simply load up on really heavy armor. Don't even attempt to dodge and just tank him through all those attacks and heal if you need to. He'll take out his skeletons on his own by doing his AoE magic attack. And that's really the easiest way to do it. I've done it before, even on my soul level 1 Pyromancer run. That was my first challenge. But I'm trying to make things a little bit harder for myself and make it a little bit more interesting to actually watch for you guys. So this time I'm going to make sure I tap to take out the skeletons first so I can take on Nieto one-on-one. There's really no other option. If you can't get Nieto to take out those skeletons for you, then you pretty much have to do it yourself. On my naked run, I first attempted to do it without going to a divine weapon, but I found it was just near impossible to continually dodge all the skeletons while you're dodging Nieto as well. You just can't kill them fast enough and have enough time to get some hits on Nieto without taking damage. And since they cause bleed damage, it doesn't take long to kill you. So anyway, I went ahead and made a Divine Dagger. It's still not going to be that easy because the dagger is such a weak weapon. And with such low faith, even a +5 divine isn't going to do hardly anything to them. But it will allow me to kill them once and for all so they won't get back up. So as you see, I'm just running down through the catacombs. You've already seen me run down here before, but I do have to stop at Vamos on the way and make my dagger a +10 fire. My run down this time was a little bit smoother than the first time. I haven't been down to the catacombs in Nieto since my naked run, so I was a little bit rusty. But as you'll see this time, it's a little bit easier. You might have noticed that I never stopped in Lost Izalith to get the Sunlight Maggot, nor do I have Cast Light memorized, and nor do I have Skull Lantern. So if you're thinking my plan is to go down to Tomb of Giants blind, you'd be correct. The reason I'm doing it is because this is a challenge playthrough, like I mentioned before. I want to make it difficult for myself, but also because I've done it with my SL5 naked guy before. And after running to Nieto so many times, it became kind of ingrained in my head on the path. It's really not that difficult. It's a small zone. As long as you know where the pitfalls are and where the enemies are, it's not that difficult to run through there. My SL5 run, I really wanted to try to beat Nieto without that damn divine weapon. So, I mean, I must have fought him 20 or 30 times total because I was just dead set on doing it. But at some point, I finally gave up and said, screw it, I'm going to go with the divine. But by that time, I had perfected the run to the boss so well that I figured I could probably do it just as easy or better with this character. So you remember in the last video, I went ahead and got the red slab and as much chunks as I needed to fully upgrade this dagger. So I'm going to just stop and do this on the way. I went ahead and went with a fire because it just made the most sense. I didn't really want to burn my normal Titanic slab because I was thinking that I might want to use it for something else. I didn't want to waste it on a +15 dagger if I wanted to do a New Game Plus run because it would be pointless. So I decided to just save it for now. As you can see, one skeleton did decide to follow me down. I didn't expect it, but thankfully I was able to take him out. So hidden body again. It's the only way to fly. This time one of these guys actually does see me, but I'm ready for him and able to dodge out of the way. These guys are extremely nasty when you don't have very good armor on. They could probably take this character out in about a second flat. But as I was saying anyway, the Fire Dagger 10 just made the most sense. Since I didn't really think I would need the dagger for anything other than possibly the 4 Kings and of course Gwyn himself, it was plenty to do the job. When I'm talking about the New Game Plus stuff, I don't know if I'm going to do it yet, but if I do, I think I'll have a better use for that slab, either as a lightning weapon, or I might decide to upgrade my shield all the way. I would never use it on armor, but as you can see, it took me a minute to remember where the first bridge was, but now that I figured out where that was, the rest of it I'll get my groove on, and it's a pretty easy run through here. This time I actually do have the hidden body going, so it's probably going to be even easier than the first time I experienced it, but I wasn't quite sure at the time. Amazingly, I blocked that with my little heater shield. That thing actually has pretty good stability when upgraded, and it's a plus 10 right now. It's actually a pretty amazing little shield that I hadn't really discovered. I mean, it only weighs 2.0, and I think at plus 14 you get something like 68 stability out of it. And that's pretty amazing for such a small little shield. So you'll notice here, I'm finally going to put that white seance ring to use. There's a little trick involved with it. When you use it, it adds a 4th slot. And so what happens is, whatever you put in that 4th slot is the spell that gets deleted when you take it back off. So it can be used to basically have a spell memorized temporarily that you don't really care about anymore. So that's exactly what I'm doing. I wanted to have fall control so that I can fall into Nito's room safely and not take any damage. But I also wanted to have hidden body and still have enough ammo to take on Nieto. So by adding one of the spells on the end that I'm not going to need for the actual fight, I can simply use the ring up until the point where I'm going to drop into Nito's room. I can take the ring off, lose the spell that I don't really need anymore, and I haven't really lost anything. So it's a neat little trick if you ever come across a time that it would be handy. As you see, I'm just kind of weaving my way through here. You'll notice I'm not going to go to the second bonfire, and that's definitely intentional. The second bonfire, in a way to me, is actually a more difficult boss run than the first bonfire. I don't even think I've ever used the second bonfire other than my very first playthrough. It kind of seems redundant. I'm not quite sure why they put it in there. And there are areas like New Londo that don't even have a bonfire, yet they sneak two in really close distance to each other and two are giants. My guess is they figured it was such a tough zone for new players that they wanted to give them a little bit of extra chance or something. But anyway, I've always done the boss run through the first bonfire. And as you saw, it was an extremely easy run. I knew where the enemies were, I knew where the dogs were. The hidden body and what's it called? Slumbering Dragon Crest Ring. Both of those made it really simple to run through. And surprisingly, these little mini pinwheels did not see me. Most magic characters tend to see me early on, but these guys barely even noticed me till I was right up on them. So that part of the run was actually much easier than I thought it was going to be. So here's the moment of truth. So now you're going to see me take off the ring. And it's going to remind me that I'm going to lose a spell, in which I don't really care because I don't need hidden body anymore. I'm going to pop on my fall control. The reason I'm doing that is because a lot of times as you drop down, Nieto likes to do his little sword stab on the ground. And the first one's difficult to dodge because you can't visibly see for the timing. So you have to go by the sound. As you see, I didn't do it right. So my goal here is to take out the skeleton ASAP, and the only way I think I can do it is with a backstab. I'm guessing I would do about 20 damage with a slash, and it just wouldn't be quick enough to take him down without getting killed myself or having Nieto reach me. So 3 quick backstabs was the way that ended up working the best here. And now I've got Nieto alone. Well, somewhat alone. The big skeletons are over there, and as you're going to notice me here pretty quickly, I always know they're there, and I always keep an eye out for them. If I get too close and they aggro, it's game over. There's no way I can take him down. You're noticing that I'm not... See, there I go looking. I'm not in hyper mode. It's because it was just too risky with the skeletons. If it was just a straight Nieto fight, I definitely would have done it because he's not that hard to dodge. But the skeletons made a really risky venture. I figured if somehow I would have taken enough damage by the skeletons to where I could have used it, I probably would have just popped it on real quick. But that chance didn't come. So I'm basically just running back and forth here. I'm not doing a whole lot of damage to him, but because he's so slow and doesn't really have much of a range attack, I can pop off a lot of shots before he even reaches me. I guess you would call that his Gravelord sword dance, although you only get one sword with it. But it's really easy to dodge if you can actually see him. And down goes Nieto. This actually went a lot easier than I thought it would be. I really thought Nieto might be a pain in the ass for me, but things just worked out right. Skeletons really didn't do any damage to me. I was able to take him out with 3 quick backstabs without much work. Other than the original hit when I first dropped down, Nieto never got a hand on me. So now, as you'll see, I'm pretty much warping directly back to the Bonfire and heading straight down to New Londo. I knew this area was going to be a bit challenging because it is possible to run through most of it, but as a really fragile character, it doesn't take much to get killed. Those ghost attacks can't be blocked, and a lot of times you'll end up getting swarmed, and within 2 or 3 hits, you're pretty much dead. So I was a little apprehensive going in here. You'll notice that I take my time in this area a lot more than I usually do. Not only because I'm kind of respecting the damage of the ghost, but also because I don't do this area a lot. I do it once in a while, but I don't hang out here. I don't PvP here too much. I don't hang out here in this front area, at least, for any other reason than getting through it the first time. And when I want to farm chunks, I always go the back entrance through the Valley of Drakes. So this whole first area up to Ingward is still kind of foreign to me. I don't do it often enough to know it like the back of my hand like I do the other areas. You'll notice I have 5 Transient Curses. That's because way back in probably the second video, I had a lot of extra souls before I fought the Capra Demon, and I figured I wanted to spend them for something I might use later. So I picked up Transient Curse, and I also picked up the item that removes a curse from you. So you see that plus 10 Dagger is actually doing pretty good damage. 2 hits and when a ghost is down, so it's actually pretty amazing for such a low damage weapon that it's able to kill these ghosts so easily. Even though it's weak, it is extremely quick. So as long as you have enough endurance to take a few swings, you can actually kill things pretty quickly, even though it's not a high AR weapon. The Banded Dagger is definitely superior. It has a bleed built in, so that would have been one nice thing to have. But otherwise, I was actually pretty amazed at this little weapon. It did a little bit better than I thought it would. I really thought I'd be relying on magic way, way more, but the weapon still comes in handy. So you notice my little tactic here. A lot of times I'll just run up to Ingward with a stronger character and just run up the ladder and hope to get lucky. I knew that that was not going to happen this time. So my plan was to get all the ghosts to come outside so I can pick them off one by one. It seemed to be working pretty well at this point. The trouble was I couldn't remember exactly how many ghosts were actually in that building, so trying to count them wasn't doing me any good. They have a strange aggro range, so even if you run near them, sometimes they don't follow you that far. So I'm going into this room now thinking there's only going to be the one Banshee in there that screams at you. But I would have been mistaken. These other ghosts didn't actually follow me. So you can see I almost died right here. And so I'm running out of here again, hoping to get them to follow me this time. I really didn't want to die this early in and have to go through this whole part again, so I was trying my hardest to make sure I stayed alive. But this time, thankfully, they followed me. I still took some damage. And they're still there. Yeah, I don't know how many was that? 10, 12 ghosts in total? Thankfully, they go out with only 1 or 2 hits of the Great Soul Arrow. And they're not done yet. There's at least one more here. And actually, you'll notice as I go up the stairs, there's actually another one floating around. So there was actually more ghosts in here than I remember. So it's a good thing that I played a little conservatively. I was going to talk to this guy, but I figured, why not? I don't need anything from him. Just take him out real quick. Got the key, and on to the main boss here. The Four Kings was definitely the fight I was dreading the most, because I knew it was going to be tough. He's not really that tough of a boss once you know how to do it, if you have the damage capability. That's the one thing I kind of lack right now. My magic does do a lot of damage, but the problem is it doesn't have high DPS. It takes a full second to 2 seconds to fire up the animation for a soul arrow and then actually recover from it. So even though it might do big damage, it doesn't do as much as it is needed to take the kings out before the others start spawning. So I knew that this was going to be a little bit of a task to take out the kings. It was really tough on my naked run. I did it quite a few times, but I finally ended up getting it just right, and I figured that's probably what was going to have to happen this time. That there's no way I was going to get it on my first shot, and I'd have to really think about how to handle it. On my naked run, at least I had more health to deal with, but this gal here, she can't take much damage. And even though she has armor, her defense is still something, you know, like 120 or something like that. So if I didn't really need any chunks or the large ember, I probably would have just homeward boned out already and then started making my boss runs from the other side. But since I want to make this video a little bit more exciting, and I definitely wanted some chunks to upgrade my shield, decided I'd go through at least to get to the boss area before I gated out of here. These guys I would normally parry, but I just don't want to risk it. I've done fairly well so far, so I'm just going to go with some backstabs. You notice I'm putting on the gold serpent ring. That's because I definitely want to try to get a few chunks out of this pass here. Except I make a really stupid mistake here. I thought I was locked on and was going to spin around behind him, but somehow I missed my lock on and I got stabbed in the back. So second pass through here, I'm definitely going to be a little bit more careful around this corner. And I got it right that time. So you can see plus 10 fire dagger and hornet ring is definitely enough power to take these guys out. I don't see any reason to parry other than style points, but these guys do fairly good damage, so one missed parry on my part would pretty much end it. I just don't want to risk it. And if you get it far enough away and they run at you, they almost always do that stab attack, and it's probably the easiest way to backstab them. You can simply sidestep it. If you get a little bit closer to them without them running, they'll end up doing their other attacks, but getting running at you far away is probably the easiest way to take them out. These guys are kind of annoying. They're not all that hard usually, but that tongue attack, I'm guessing it's his tongue, does actually a lot of damage and has a lot of range, so I'm just trying to stay away from him. I'm not sure if one would kill me or not, and I didn't really feel like testing it out, so I'm just playing peekaboo. And I didn't really notice this at the time, but I have a lot of souls right now. And even though I don't really need them, I started realizing I should have probably used them before I came down here, because there was a chance I could lose them. At this stage of the game, there's not much I can buy other than chunks and, well, not chunks, titanite shards, green shards, twinkling, all that stuff. Usually that's what I do when I have a lot of extra souls. I treat them like a bank. Since I always need them for upgrading something or other, it's better to take an extra 200,000 souls you got laying around, buy a stack of twinkling titanite or whatever it is you think you'll need, and then you always have them, so if you die, it's no big deal. So I must have probably farmed these guys at least 100 times before in other playthroughs. I've actually seen 2 slabs drop from them, but as many times I've gone down there and cleared this whole area out, it's definitely not worth farming them for slabs. If you really want a second slab, you either got to go by the Sigmire quest and do it just right to get it to drop, or you can go down into the Great Hollow and kill all the lizards down there. The last time I did that, I actually got 2 slabs out of the deal. It's quite a pain in the ass, and it's not going to be in this playthrough for sure. But my point being, farming Dark Wraiths, trying to get a slab, is kind of an exercise in futility. If you're patient, you might get lucky, but otherwise you're going to get really frustrated. However, they're great for farming chunks. With 410 item discovery, I've gone through here and spent nothing more than about 20 minutes and ended up with probably 30 chunks and 10 dark hands. They're not very stingy on their drop rates, which is probably a good thing. You notice I kind of look lost right there? I heard something in the background and it sounded like one of their dark shields, and I thought for a second that there was another one I had forgotten about. But I guess it must be just something in the area that makes that sound. Don't really need those, but might as well get them while I'm there. So anyway, we're getting close to the boss fight here, so I'll go ahead and talk about it a little bit. I didn't rush down there just randomly and hope for the best. I knew that it was going to take a little bit of preparation, so there's no way I was going to show all that. It was just too much work. But my problem was going to be I needed to stay in hyper mode to kill the kings fast enough. That was the only way I could pull it off, whether by magic or dagger. The problem is, even if I went in there in hyper mode, there was no way for me to keep it engaged without doing some special work. Once he decided to throw his unblockable magic attack, I would have had to block it. There's no other way around it. Even if you try to run away from it, that just means you're giving the kings more time to keep spawning. So the only way to do it is to block the attack and have it do just enough damage not to kill you but keep you in hyper mode. And that was the real trick, and it took me a few times to get it right. My method that I ended up doing is a little bit crazy, but it seemed to work. My heater shield that I have right now only has something like 30 magic resist, and it took over a little bit over half my life. So there's no way to allow it to block twice or something like that. So if I healed a full, blocked with my heater shield, I'd have something like 45% of my health, which just wasn't enough damage. And that was one of the lower damages I could get out of a shield. So then I started thinking of other ways to do it, and what I came up with was cursing myself so that I only had half my life. And then changing my other shield, which is the small leather shield that I started the game with. It has the same actual magic resist as the heater shield. So I knew that if I changed it into a +5 magic shield, it would actually raise it up to 40. That was the magic number, and it worked out perfectly. So basically I could start out in hyper mode, block one of the king's attacks after healing, and it would knock me right back into hyper mode. Once I got that figured out, it wasn't too long for me to get the kings down. It took a few tries. I would say it probably took about 10 in total. And the first ones, I wasn't actually trying to kill them. I was just kind of testing the water to see how it was going to work. If blocking it was going to work. I wanted to see if I had any chance of taking him down with my magic, which I ended up not doing, as you're going to see very shortly here. Great Soul Arrow does do a lot of damage, something like 300 and something, 368 or something like that. But it's like, as I mentioned earlier, the DPS is just not there. It takes 2 or 3 seconds in between each Soul Arrow to fire another one off after dodging him. And 300 something damage every 3 or 4 seconds just isn't enough to take him down. The Dagger, on the other hand, while still in hyper mode, as you're seeing, I'm showing you what I'm equipped right now with. Small leather shield +5 magic. I'm showing you that I only have 265 total hit points right now. So yeah, this was a little bit of a crazy run. But as I was saying, my Dagger in hyper mode actually did way more damage than I thought it would do, and it was a way better option than Soul Arrow. I could probably swing my Dagger almost 3 times in about a second and a half, and it would do over 500 damage. That just made it a way better option, and it didn't really have any wind-up time. So I had way more DPS capability than I did with my magic. And you're going to notice here, I'm waiting at the top of the elevator purposely and then running back across it. For anyone who's doing a Four Kings run and having trouble and dying a lot, that's the best way to make the run. If you stay on the elevator and then run across it to let it go back up, or in that case go back down, that means the next time you run through, if you happen to die, they're already waiting for you. Doing what I just did without that elevator already being down is almost sure death, because the drakes will follow you. By the time you pull the lever and get the elevator back up, you'll most likely be hit by lightning. So it's a little trick I learned after doing the King's Run many times with other characters. As you see here, I'm slowly trying to get myself in hyper mode with my ridiculously low health already. This is kind of the ghetto method, and I finally got it. So this turned out to be a pretty interesting fight. Hope it's at least entertaining to you guys. Notice I'm waiting here. Green Blossom, by the way, was a very important part of this, because I have to be able to get in there, swing a few times, and still dodge, and have enough stamina left to attack him again when it's time. And Green Blossoms are really the only way to do it. I couldn't wear the Grass Crest shield. I'm not two-handing purposely, not because I want my shield out, but because it takes a lot less stamina, and they're a lot faster. I tried the two-handing method one time, and it just didn't work right. It did a little bit more damage, but the stamina just didn't work out right. Notice how I'm still swinging. I'm sure most of you guys already know that trick. As the boss is dying, you keep swinging and keep doing more damage. So I barely got that first king out before the second king showed up, so I'm actually making pretty good time here. But I'm keenly watching my Green Blossom, because I learned a lesson a few deaths ago, that if your Green Blossom runs out at the wrong time, it can screw you over, because your stamina doesn't recover. And it just went out. So you'll notice here, I'm not attacking him anymore, but you probably can't see it, but I actually popped my second Blossom. I wanted to make sure that I still had my stamina regen going, because that was the most important part. In retrospect, I could have kept attacking him and still had time to pop another Blossom before this king showed up, but I wanted to play it safe. I was definitely way ahead of time on that one. As you can see, once you fight him a few times, he's really easy to dodge. I was really attacking him that time. He has a tiny amount of health left. I realized if I would have taken a few more swings on that second king before I popped my Blossom, I probably would never have even made it to the fourth king. I wouldn't have imagined it actually be possible with the setup I got going, but it actually turned out to be really effective. So this last guy is sort of a joke. However, I wanted to make sure that I didn't die by being an idiot and dodging incorrectly. So I finally made it. I went ahead and showed the actual death sequence, because I felt it was actually earned this time. This is the most times I've died on this playthrough, and it was totally expected. I never thought I would get to the Four Kings and do it on the first try. So anyway, we're getting close to the end of the video. However, I do want to show you guys something after this. I'll show you the first couple times I fought the kings. I don't know if this was the first time or the second time, but he actually didn't use his magic attack on me. After all the work I put into coming up with this cool plan, he never did it, so it didn't really matter. So I'll show you how it was supposed to work, I guess you could say. Plus, I'll show you the kind of damage I was actually doing with the arrow. So now he finally does it. I heal up, block the attack. It doesn't kill me, but it knocks me right back into hyper mode. It took me a few times to get that right. And I'm not actually trying to kill him here. I just wanted to test out my shield, and also to test how fast I could damage him with magic. I can't wear the Bellowing Dragon Crest ring like I did on the other bosses, because I'm actually using a Sif's ring to be able to be in the Abyss. But anyway, I only have one fight left. I got to take on Gwen. I haven't decided at this point yet whether or not I'm going to go New Game Plus, but I'm going to have to think on that for a little bit. So until next time.